All right, Xavier and Gonzaga. Thing that stood out to me the most. Xavier came all the way back. They were down pretty big in the first half. They came all the way back. Jack Nungy looked like the guy we thought he was going to end up being. But it was Gonzaga that kind of made that finishing run, right? They kind of threw that finishing punch, that knockout blow, and it was Julian Strawther that made two big threes down the stretch. Here's the numbers that stand out to me. Strawther, Nolan Hickman, Rasir Bolton combined for 50 points, 14 assists, just 3 turnovers, 10 for 17 from 3, and 17 for 35 from the floor. Gio, I think that having those guards be a threat is what's going to take Gonzaga from being the Drew Timme team to being a team that we can honestly consider like a top 5 team in America again this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what separates them from being a great team and a good team. And those guys just need to stay consistent. Like Strawther obviously had, those 2 threes down the stretch, but you look back to the game before, he only had 4 points. So, that's just that consistency factor. If he's going to be able to continue to do that, I think that they haven't really had that playmaking that they've had in the past. And it's also really easy to critique Gonzaga because of what they've been in the past. Like right now, they are still a very good team, right? The 2 losses they have are to Texas and to Purdue, 2 fantastic teams at this point in the season. So I think it's really easy to critique them. They're a good team, but right now they're not a great team just because those guards haven't been consistent throughout.
Mm-hmm. T.O.?
Those guards, they're filling in. Whenever we were in Austin, like the guards were noticeable. Like it was a big time difference between Texas's guards and Gonzaga's guards, at least for that game. When those guys are knocking down shots, with 13 of 24 today, that completely changes what they're able to do offensively, right? And it gives Timme all kinds of room to operate in the post and for Drew Timme to do Timme things. So I obviously, Nolan Hickman's got to be good for them to be good. And he was good today, 14, 6, and 5. I'd take that any day of the week. And it's just a matter of finding places to be effective. I thought he dribbled the air out of the ball a little bit too much early in the Texas game, and they had a hard time establishing rhythm. Ball was popping a little bit more today, and they were much better as a result.
Yeah, I think you can also say to both of you guys, tell me if this is fair. The defensive pressure that they faced going up against Texas and Chris Beard in that building versus what they faced against Xavier in basically an empty PK. What was it? The PK Invitational? I can't keep those two straight. It was a very different environment that they were in. You got a Chris Beard defense where those guys are getting up in you with 10,763 crazy Texas fans screaming at you, music blaring all over the place. And then the other one is basically a pickup game played in an empty arena with family and friends watching. It feels like a high school tournament in those gyms, Gio.
Oh no, yeah, the atmosphere definitely matters, and I remember watching that game against Texas, and like you could hear it through the TV, just how loud it was in there, and that's just not something easy to overcome. So I mean the atmosphere obviously matters a ton, and where they're playing today obviously is not the same as going on the road against a Texas team.
It was like when you played in the Kingwood Classic in Texas and you got the big gym. You know what I'm talking about, Gio? Like you play in that big AAU tournament and there's this one big gym where everybody wants to play it, but there's nobody in there anyway.
Right.
Yeah, like that's kind of what it seems like. That's the reason I toasted to the smaller venues. I think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right. I do want to talk about Xavier really quick here because they are a tough team for me to peg at this point, right? I watch them. I look at them, and when they play, they look like a good basketball team, right? I think that when you watch them play, they have guards that can make some shots. They have 2 big guys that work well together. Jack Nungy, when he's going right, is really, really good. I trust in the coach they have running things there. It looks like they're running a little bit more of a modern offense. But if you look at the results they put up, right? Lost by 2 to Indiana at home. Lost by 7 to Duke on a neutral. Lost by 4 to Gonzaga on a neutral. They're not winning games yet, but they're competitive single-digit games with teams that are all currently ranked in the top 25 on KenPom and in the top 12 of the AP poll. So, Gio, what's your take on the Xavier team? Right, I'm in the weeds in the Big East, so I watch them a lot. I watch them when they play shitty teams. What's your take on Xavier and just how good they can be?
I mean, they definitely passed the eye test. I think you just said it best. I think that they have potential to be in that top 3, top 4 of the Big East. They're right there for sure. But in terms of results, right, like it comes down to the little things. Like I think they need to, have a deep film session, right? Go over the little things. Like every possession matters. And it comes down to, are you taking care of the ball? Is there a free throw line box out, right? 50-50 balls. And, those are the things that are going to lead to the W's. But in terms of the eye test, right, they definitely pass with flying colors.
Mm-hmm. T.O.?
I don't see why they're not a top 4 team in the Big East, especially the way Villanova's playing. And I don't see Villanova's problems getting any better anytime soon. Here's my thing. They've always had talent. It's almost a reverse of what's happened the past few seasons. The past few seasons, they've been great in the non-con in the first 4 games of the Big East, and then they just kind of falls off a cliff. This year, they're figuring their problems out now because they're playing a high level of competition. I think that's a good thing for Sean Miller. That being said, I read a few tweets from Xavier people or those who love Xavier, and everybody's saying they're definitely a tournament team. Yeah, maybe. I'm not willing to say they're definitely a tournament team. My bounce back to that, or my rebuttal to that, is you have to win some of these games. Like, eventually, the people making the selections on Selection Sunday, they're looking at metrics. They're looking at wins, losses. It is very cut and dry what they're looking at for the most part. It is not an eye test situation. You have to win some of these bigger games.
Yeah, I think that's going to come. Right. I think
I do too. But to say
like,
they're a tournament team right now would not be accurate. Like, you have to win some of these big games.
Yeah, I agree with you. Right now, if you do a field, like, they don't have the resume or whatever it would take. But
right.
I think that they're going to get there. I think the bigger question to have now, or the bigger conversation to have now, is like, they have to be top 3 in the Big East, because I don't think that there's really all that much outside of the top 3 in the Big East. Watching just simply eye test stuff, I think it's very clear. UConn and Creighton, whoever you want to set them apart, I think that they're probably the 2 best teams in the conference, right? Then Xavier, to me, is the next in that next tier, and then I don't even know where you go from there.
I think you go Providence and St. John's after that, and then you're flirting with Marquette in that second tier.
And I don't think Marquette's a tournament team, at least not yet. They stayed within 5 of Purdue, which, that might make them be a top 25 team in college basketball this year. But it just, once you get past that top 3, it's kind of it's slim pickings for the Big East this season.
Big East was good last year. There's a lot of change in the Big East this year, and you saw a lot of change in some other leagues last season as well. And you're seeing kind of the repercussions of roster turnover and the repercussions, like Providence, for example. Last season, they brought back a bunch of guys from the year prior. So it was like their second year altogether. This season, completely new guys. St. John's, are add Curbelo to the mix, completely different situation. Marquette, you're looking at different guys coming in. The roster consistency for those top 3 teams, they're all in their second year together, right? Or the majority, or the vast majority of their roster is. So I think that's a big part of it. Especially looking now that we're in the non-con and the success of those top 3 teams.
Gio?
I mean, yeah, it doesn't look pretty down the bottom of the Big East right now. Obviously Villanova, tough loss today. Seton Hall, tough loss today. It's
be careful with Seton Hall, because Dagan will just boot you out of nowhere. So you gotta be careful with Seton Hall.
I'm sorry. Look, I'm not even trying to, because I'm already being careful, because they're going to find me on Twitter already. They've already found me on Twitter, so I don't want to say too much, but,
Wait, what did you said something
Gio,
on the Big Ten show? What did you say on the Big Ten show?
I can make that
What did you say on the Big Ten preview show that got you lit up?
I said nobody's scared of Indiana. That guy. Everyone starts talking about their record versus Rutgers. Who is Rutgers? They don't belong in the Big Ten. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm gonna be careful with my words.
You just got to be right. And then whenever you bring up when you were right, crickets. Ask everybody in the state of Iowa. Crickets. Yeah. I haven't heard a word. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but I basically agree with your guys' assessment. I think that the Big East just isn't looking too great right now. They do still have some opportunities upcoming though.
Keep in mind, there's only 10 teams 10, 11 teams in the Big East.
11 teams.
11 teams. Like, there's just not that many teams. Georgetown, brutal. DePaul, like, there's 2 right there. After that, you're just kind of trying to figure things out.
Yep.
I can't really say
I'm tilting right now because UConn is playing and they just a couple dumb plays in a row.
How you guys
hang with us, Rob. Hang with us, Rob.
I'm in. I'm locked in. I'm locked in right now. I want to ask you guys. We'll spend about 2 minutes on this because we spent a long time on Friday talking about it. But do you have any takes on what's going on right now with Villanova? They're 2-5. It has not been a great start to the Kyle Neptune era. I think a lot of that can kind of be put on the fact that he doesn't have an All-American point guard at his disposal, and he's missing his 2 best players. But do you guys what's your opinion on Villanova right now? And a 2-5 start at Villanova is something that I don't think we've ever seen.
I mean, I don't see like an easy path for it to get better for them. Right now they don't have a point guard. They don't have size. They were switching everything against Oregon, and it's just leading to these post-up opportunities. It's a depleted roster, and you mentioned they're missing their best two guys, but thinking even about those two guys coming in, one's coming off an Achilles injury in Justin Moore, and the other one's a freshman, right? So how much can you really expect from those two guys, when they do come back, if they do come back? So I think there's just a lot of holes right now that they're big holes, right? I don't see them getting fixed overnight. I don't see a lot of positives moving forward for Villanova right now.
T.O.?
Here's my thing. This team made the Final Four last year, boys. They still have, even with injuries, Eric Dixon, who was a starter on a Final Four team. They still have Brandon Slater, starter on a Final Four. Caleb Daniels, starter on a Final Four team. That should be enough to beat an Oregon team that only had 6 scholarship players available.
They played a walk-on 25 minutes. Oregon
Bingo.
You
should win that game. Mark Armstrong is a freshman point guard who's a top 30 player in the country. You should win that game. You should find a way to win that game. That's scary. That's the most alarming thing to me, because there's still. I understand they're injury depleted. I understand Gillespie was one of the greatest point guards in the history of that school, and what he did was invaluable. And I realize there's role players around him, and they are still geared to be role players. Caleb Daniels is a really good player. Like Eric Dixon is a terrific defender. Brandon Slater does a lot of really good things. You got to figure out ways. Like even when you're hurt, even when there's guys missing, Oregon had guys missing. Oregon won.
Mm-hmm.
Like they found a way to win. Villanova's 2-5. They haven't found ways to win, and there's excuses for people all over the place right now. There's excuses at Louisville. Louisville's 0-7. There's excuses at Cal. Cal's 0-7. Like you got to find ways to win. Oregon found a way to win. Villanova hasn't been able to do that yet. That's the most alarming part to me.
Yeah, the excuses at Cal are we just don't have good enough players. Sorry, G. The excuses at Cal are we don't have good enough players to win games.
And my point is I think Villanova still has good enough players to win games.
Yes, I agree. G,
go
ahead.
What
Sorry.
do you guys think it is though? Like, it was the coaching change, that big of a blow, or what do you?
I think so. So here's my take is I think Jay Wright is one of the absolute best teachers of basketball that we've ever seen at this level. They don't run plays, right? He drilled them on their concepts. He drilled them on what he expected to be like, just to be able to go out there and just run their stuff. It's not even running their stuff, just go out there and play, right? It's either like a ball screen and you get a drive and you draw a defender and a kick, or you get a post up with a point guard, you draw an extra defender, you kick it out, create a closeout, same thing again. Like there's a certain way that they want to play, which is why you see so many Villanova guys end up having success as role players in the NBA.
Right.
That's why it takes a couple years for guys to end up being stars, and why you don't necessarily see freshmen come in and have kind of the same impact that they do at other programs.
Right.
And I don't think that it's fair to expect Kyle Neptune in his first season at Villanova and his second season as a head coach to step in and be that level of teacher, right? At least not right off the bat. So I don't know if they need to play a different way. I don't know if they need to let Kyle just kind of let this program be his own thing. But it's just, if he's going to try to do what Jay Wright does, he's never going to be able to do what Jay Wright did at the level that Jay Wright did it, because Jay Wright was the best. I don't think it's wild to say was one of the best ever at doing it. So I think it'll take a little bit of time. I think some of it might be getting his own players in the program. I think it's far too early to say anything beyond the fact that, like, it's a new head coach replacing a legend that doesn't have his two best players or a point guard. But to me, that's why they're struggling, is that you lost one of the greatest teachers of a game in a program that relies on the coach teaching the way that he wants to play. Does that make sense?
Definitely makes sense. Yeah, for sure.